did get Fabulous Media Group in the right place. I got it somewhere. But Cynthia Sassi began Fabulous Arizona in 2011. Again, coming right out of the recession. And she's gonna explain her entire timeline, so I'm not gonna take that away and ruin that. But since 2011, she has expanded Fabulous Arizona into the Fabulous Media Group. She is also the co-founder of Say Less Media, which is a digital marketing agency. And she has been through the challenging economic times since launching her business. She is a force in online publishing and digital marketing for over a decade, passionate about supporting the local community. She is an authority on the subjects of online publishing, social media, digital marketing, web design, and entrepreneurship. In her spare time, Cynthia works with over a dozen local charities and frequently gives speeches on subjects ranging from digital media to female entrepreneurship in the 21st century. Now, I am kind of sad we did not get the puppies today.
I should have brought the Sassy pups with me.
They usually travel quite often with her, but we'll take the. We didn't
I have
get
two
them.
little pups. They just turned 12, and they have their own Instagram, and they're kind of little celebrities around town.
Big celebrities. But Cynthia graduated from Glendale High School in 2003, graduated from ASU with a bachelor's in marketing in 2007, and she also is a former gaucho taking summer classes here at GCC. So with that, Cynthia, I'm going to give you the stage, allow you to do your presentation, then we'll hammer you with a bunch of questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I'm going to need you guys to kind of wake up a little bit and give me a little chuckle for some of my jokes and all of that. Work with me here. So thank you for the introduction, Brent. I kind of wanted to talk about not just working or having a business through economic downturns and a global pandemic, but also I grew up very poor and didn't have like the privileges that some people have who have parents that might be entrepreneurs or own businesses. I really didn't have that guidance. My parents didn't even go to college. So I really kind of had to figure everything out on my own and was really kind of at a disadvantage and still found a way to kind of overcome that. And so I wanted to kind of, talk about that in addition to, building and starting a business in a not so great economy. So as Brent said, I graduated from Glendale High School in 2003, and I know what you're thinking. I must have been like 13 when I graduated because I don't look that old, right? But I was in fact 18 when I graduated in 2003. My parents moved me here from Wisconsin when I was about 10, and they moved us here in June, so it was 110 degrees, and I hated them. But I have grown to love Arizona, and I ended up getting a full tuition waiver to ASU. And I don't know if this still exists, but when I was in high school, the top 2% in your class got a full tuition waiver to any in-state college. So I was very, very fortunate to get that opportunity because otherwise I don't know how I would have afforded college. And so I did do my courses at ASU, but took summer courses here at GCC because I lived down the street from here and commuted to ASU. And so I went ahead and got a business degree at ASU. And then I started an internship at a company called sheknows.com. And that was a women's lifestyle magazine. So think like Home and Garden with Cosmopolitan combined with parenting magazines, all in one, but it was all digital. And back in 2007, this was a pretty before its time type of thing. Digital marketing wasn't really a thing yet. Digital magazines were not really that popular yet. And this was kind of before, the 2008 housing bubble burst and the economy tanking, and that's when print really started on its downward spiral, and it really gave us opportunity in the digital space to grow. So I took an internship there for class credit, thinking they were offering $10 an hour. I would get my class credit. I was like, cool, had no intention of it actually turning into something. And at that point, I still didn't know what I was gonna do with my marketing degree from ASU. So I feel like it was the universe that sent me to that internship because it ended up setting the trajectory of my career. And what I loved about digital marketing was the analytics that are available. As opposed to like print or TV, you literally in real time can see how many people are on the website, what articles are they reading, what ads are they clicking on, and then you can adjust your content based on the data. So I found that fascinating, and I fell in love with digital publishing. And so from there, they actually hired me when I graduated. So I was very fortunate for that. At the time, the company was like 10 people, and I got the opportunity to work in the owner's office and got to listen to all of his phone calls. And they taught me, with it being such a small company, they taught me literally everything about the business. So I got to learn HTML and email marketing and how to run ads and how to read contracts. And so I was really, really fortunate to get that opportunity to kind of learn the ins and outs of the whole business because they were so small. So when I got hired, I was me, myself, and I, the marketing department in the company. And so again, gave me lots of opportunity to learn a lot because I was working directly for the owners of the company. So I stayed there a couple years, and then they ended up selling for multi-millions, which was a really cool opportunity to get to see them grow like that and then sell to a larger media company. And so it was I learned a lot in that experience, but once they sold, they started making changes, and obviously, you know, big corporate structure, and it just wasn't something that I was really excited about anymore. So it was time for me to move on, but I knew that I wouldn't find anything like that in the Phoenix area. Most companies like Ashinos.com are based out of LA, New York, Chicago. So I was like, okay, if I'm gonna find something that I like as much as this, I'm gonna have to create it. So I'm gonna have to find an opportunity somewhere. So like I said, this was around 2008 when the economy was not doing well, and magazines and newspapers were starting to die because people couldn't afford print ads. Print ads are very expensive if you don't know. You're talking thousands of dollars for a one-page ad. And so that was starting to get really expensive when a lot of people were filing bankruptcy at that point or closing their doors. And so I basically went to all of the local magazines and started proposing to them digital. Like, let's make that transition from print to digital, or supplement your print with digital. And we can then have a lower price point to offer advertisers, and you don't have to pay the cost of printing all these magazines. You can, the overhead and cost for a digital magazine is obviously much, much lower than printing print magazines. So I was able to kind of sell them on the idea that they could make up this money that they were losing on print by launching digital, and they were able to sell at lower price points. They could sell to more advertisers at a lower price point. And so I convinced a local magazine to hire me and create a position for me. So I basically wrote my own job description for that and kind of took over all the digital. So I built them a website and then taught their editorial team how to write for web. I taught their design team how to design for web. And we just kind of, I kind of created this whole digital version of their magazine for them over the course of a couple years. So after some time, ethically, the owner and I kind of butted heads a little bit, and I just didn't really agree with some of the things he was doing. And the reality was I was running the digital myself. I was pretty much doing everything and managing all those people and had the knowledge. So I was like, why am I not doing this for myself? So I left and started my own magazine, digital magazine. So I started Fabulous Arizona in 2010, which is a local online lifestyle magazine. And so it focuses on local businesses. I have worked for national magazines and local, and at that point, I was like, I'm really passionate about the local businesses. You get to talk to people that are passionate about what they're doing. They have a story, and it's so different than working with like an account executive at Target who kind of really doesn't care about what they're doing, and they're just, writing a check, as opposed to getting to showcase these local businesses that are super passionate and supporting the community by doing a local magazine. So that's why I chose to do Fabulous Arizona. And quite frankly, I chose Fabulous because it was a domain that was available. I've really embraced the word fabulous. I use it a lot now. But at the time, there was no really, it wasn't that I was really tied to that word. It was just honestly the domain that was available at the time. So I started that and kind of used a lot of the knowledge that I had from the previous magazines. But I also had a full-time job as well. So I got a full-time job with another national magazine based out of Chicago. the benefit to this was I got to work remote, and it was another job where I reached out to them. I said, this is what I think I can do for you guys. They flew me up. I got 2 days to pitch myself, and they created a position for me. So again, I got to kind of write my own job description and create a job for myself. But what was great about that is I was able to work from home. So I could side hustle Fabulous Arizona and take coffee meetings during the day if I needed to, or go to events, and could still get my work done for the other job without, having to worry about being at an office. So that allowed me a lot of flexibility to grow Fabulous Arizona. And eventually it kind of got to the point that it was getting hard to do both. Fabulous Arizona had really started growing, and I was like, I kind of can't really juggle both anymore. They're both kind of suffering. I will say, as much as it's good to go ahead and side hustle, it is very, very challenging to make a full-time income when it is not your full-time job. So I kept thinking in my head, oh, someday, I'm gonna quit the full-time job and do this full-time. But the reality was, as long as I had that little safety net of the full-time job salary, and as long as I didn't have the full-time time to spend on the Fabulous Arizona, I wasn't going to make that leap. So it was a month before my 30th birthday, and my goal had been to be full-time self-employed by the time I was 30. And I finally was like, you know what? It's time. I have to do it. So I went ahead, and I gave my boss, it was like October, and I gave my boss, basically was like, I'll stay until the end of the year and help you guys, transition and train the next person. So it was like a 2.5 month notice for my boss. And at first they were like, that's great, we appreciate that. And then I guess they mulled over it and got kind of annoyed about it. And what was a 2-month notice turned into a 2-day notice, and they decided they didn't want to keep me. So then it was like, whoa, okay, now I have no income, and I have to figure out how I'm going to pay rent next month. It's me and the Sassy pups. I got to keep a roof over their head, and I didn't have parents I could go move back in with. They could barely take care of themselves and had 1-bedroom apartments. So unless I was going to go sleep on their couch, I didn't really have a lot of options. I just had to figure it out. So instead of freaking out, I was kind of excited about the opportunity that this gave me. I finally had that opportunity to go full time at this and see what I could do. So for Fabulous Arizona, I started selling a little advertising. Honestly, my first advertiser was $50. and mind you, again, this is back in 2014, so my rent was $700. It's not what rent is right now. Just overall, things were a lot less expensive. But I definitely needed more than $50 to be able to pay my bills. So I just started pounding the pavement and meeting people. And something that I was finding is that people needed my skill set in digital marketing to help their businesses. So maybe they weren't ready to advertise on Fabulous Arizona, but they started asking me if I could help them with their digital marketing, run their social media, build their website, do their email marketing. And I was like, you know what? I got to pay the bills. I'll take whatever I can get. So my first few clients, I look back now and I'm like, I cannot believe I worked for that amount of money. It was I was working literally around the clock, killing myself and barely making enough money to survive. But I did what I had to do to make this happen. And all my family and friends thought I was crazy and thought I was going to end up living on the streets. But I just was I knew what the Fabulous brand could be, and I had to keep pushing through. So it finally in 2019 was when I was like, okay, it's time to expand. I had really gotten a firm grasp on Fabulous Arizona. It had grown, it was profiting, and my plan from the day that I started Fabulous Arizona was that it was going to be something bigger. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if I was going to do other cities, other states. I didn't know if I would franchise them, license them, run them myself. I didn't know the answers. And so I sat down with one of my friends who was a business coach, and I sat on the Fabulous Wisconsin website and Instagram for a year before I actually pulled the trigger, because I didn't have the answers. I didn't know what it was going to look like. And she kind of just gave me the kick in the rear end that I needed to just go do it. And she was like, if it fails and you end up having to shut it down in a year because it didn't work, then you tried it, you did it, you just start pouring more energy into Fabulous Arizona, and you don't do the expansion. But you won't know until you try. And you won't, and it kind of like, I know I heard Shanna earlier say, you don't know what you don't know, and until you do it, you won't have those answers. So I basically packed up the dogs and drove my car up to Wisconsin. And being from Wisconsin, that's why I picked Wisconsin, because I was able to go crash on one of my cousin's couches while I figured it out. And I got up there and I just started reaching out to every restaurant and hotel in town and just saying, hey, this is, I just launched Fabulous Wisconsin. Go look at Fabulous Arizona. This is what we do. We're trying to basically do this in Wisconsin. Would you be interested in being featured? And in exchange for being featured, they would have me at their hotel for free, and so I had somewhere to stay. Or they would come host me at the restaurant, and I'd have a free meal. And so I started, and within 5 days of being there, I had already lined up 5 hotels. And so I had about 2 nights at each hotel. I had 10 days of stays for free, covered. And so to see that they were so excited to work with us, I was like, okay, I've got something here. It's not something that's just specific to Arizona. The concept itself is viable in other markets. And so, within the time that I was there, I also had 2 different people reach out to me wanting to write for us and be a part of the team. And so I was able to get them to write for us for free in exchange for their free meals or a hotel stay or a spa treatment. And so they were able to be kind of my boots on the ground people there in the state, because obviously I didn't live there. So came back and continued to expand Wisconsin. And then the pandemic hits in 2020. And a lot of what we do is obviously promoting events, promoting going to restaurants, travel. Those were all things that were not happening. And so we were like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And a lot of our competitors either stopped and did nothing, and they literally just didn't post anything, didn't do anything. Then we had other competitors who they posted stuff, but it was the same, they kept posting the same stuff they were doing before. And it was so tone deaf and clearly, didn't make any sense. And so I stopped and said, wait a minute, what can we do to help the community? And what is content that people need right now? And so immediately we stopped everything else that we had planned. And I say we, it was actually pretty much just me at that point still. And I just held everything that I had already, like the content I already had planned out. And obviously all my advertisers pulled. So like they were, there were hotels and stuff like that. And so they were like, we don't know what's gonna happen. We can't pay you. So I had no money and I was like, okay, this is scary, but we're just gonna figure out something else here. And so I immediately started producing content that made sense for what was going on at that time. So we put together a list of all the restaurants that were doing takeout. Go support your local businesses and go get takeout from these guys. They're open, they're offering takeout, go support them. Places, all the gyms that had to close down, that couldn't offer in-person workouts. They're offering online versions. Go follow their Instagram and do their online workouts with them. So we put together an article about that. So we just found ways that changing the content that we were already doing, but doing it in a way that made sense at the 2022 word, or the 2020 word of pivot. We pivoted to content that made sense for what was going on at that time. Additionally, we started focusing on advertisers that were making money at that time, like doctor's offices, COVID, places, stuff like that, that were actually doing well and were profiting because of the pandemic. We started focusing on them. And so this is when we also started Say Less Media. I was already, as I said, kind of freelancing some clients on the side, but we realized because all this in-person stuff went away, it made every business realize that digital is where you need to be, because digital doesn't require you to be in person. So now everyone was wanting to do online, events. They were wanting to do Instagram lives. They were, all this stuff that they needed to do digitally that they were maybe not paying attention to before or resistant to doing digital before. Now they had no choice, and they needed people like us to help them make that transition to digital. So we actually gained multiple clients through just even the first couple months of COVID because of the need for to be on digital. And while Fabulous Arizona didn't do like the first couple months of when everything was shut down, we lost all of our advertising. There was another publication that did some things in poor taste during that time and kind of got canceled, if you will. And as a result, because we were, supporting the community and being so proactive about being so supportive, that we ended up getting all of their advertisers. So that was really beneficial that we spent that time doing the right thing, whether people were paying us or not, because then that ended up paying us tenfold in return later because we were so supportive and stand-up people to these local businesses. So that afforded me to hire my first employee for Fabulous Media Group in June 2020. And we then, having another employee, allowed me to start expanding to other states. So then we expanded to Iowa, which being next to Wisconsin, that was, I know these are like weird states, but we were like, okay, we can do another one in the Midwest, because we had contributors there asking to be part of an Iowa team. And then we also did Washington, California, all in 2020. So really rapid expansion in what was, considered to be one of the worst years for most people. So we actually were able to take that, what looked like such a difficult time, and said, where's the opportunity here? How do we find a way to make this beneficial for us? And again, because we were digital, it was something that was an easy way for us to find a way to pivot here. So real quick, these are all the different states we have now. We are up to 6. And so we launched Nevada back in January this year. And then here's an example of like some of how we kind of pivoted our content. So typically we would have done like a restaurant of the week where you would talk about the atmosphere and their patio and whatever else they have to offer. Instead of doing those features, we switched to doing stuff like this where we were offering what people needed at that time. And then for Say Less Media, we pivoted to clients that were doing well during the pandemic. Everyone was home, so they started remodeling their homes. So we had a cabinet, kitchen cabinet company that we were working with. We had a doctor's office that obviously was very busy, so we started working with a doctor's office. And so just kind of finding, the places and the people we needed to be aligning with in order to grow our business during that time. So, kind of wanted to give you guys the quick background and like timeline of the business, so that we can do some Q&A, so you guys can have a good base to go off of for the background. But I did want to quickly give a couple of my biggest pieces of advice, and this might spur some questions as well, I think. But first and foremost, you have to be passionate about whatever you choose to do, because I will not sugarcoat this for you. Being an entrepreneur is not easy. I know Instagram will tell you otherwise. You'll see all the people with their fancy cars and bags, and they're working from home, and they have all this flexibility, and it's so great. And quite frankly, it's literally so stressful, and I wake up with anxiety most days of my life about all the things I have to do. But because I'm so passionate and I love what I do so much, I wake up every day excited about what I get to work on. So highly recommend doing something that you're super passionate about so that you can stick with it. There's going to be times that things are going to be so hard that you're going to want to quit. And so you really have to love what you do. Take as many internships as possible. I would not have this career path had I not taken that internship. So if you can do multiple internships, I recommend doing that, even if it's working for free, just to get the experience and see what you like to do or don't like to do. And also finding mentors too. Like I said, for me, I had parents that my mom graduated high school and had my sister when she was 18, and my dad didn't even graduate high school, much less did they go to college or own a business. And so they, don't have any business advice to offer me. While they're very supportive and very proud of me, they don't, can't help me with the business advice that I might need. So finding mentors that have been through this kind of stuff is so important. So definitely finding those kind of people. And then also surrounding yourself with like-minded people. So if you want to be a business owner, surround yourself with other people that want to be business owners. You'll find very quickly that the people you surround yourself with will either bring you up or bring you down. And then relationships are everything. So with businesses and whatnot. So even if sometimes you have to bite your tongue and, not say things or end things on a bad note, even if they maybe deserve it, it's best to think long-term in every action that you do. Because, 10 years of being that stand-up guy in my business as opposed to going for whatever was the fastest way to make money really has paid off in the long run. It's taken a long time, and it's taken me longer to make money, make that money. I could have done it faster by taking some shortcuts and maybe not being as ethical as I was. But if you're trying to build something that's sustainable long-term, those relationships are everything, and that has really helped me build my business to what it is the relationships. And then finally, success is happiness. So do not measure your success based on what you think everybody else thinks success is. Because, maybe for you, success is you're a sole business owner and you're making $150,000 a year doing something by yourself, as opposed to this idea of, oh, well, I need an office, I need employees, I need to have, all these things. When in reality, you might be making more revenue, but you might still be making the same amount of money and have more stress. So it's really kind of more about what makes you happy. That's really what success should be, not what, you think it looks like on a piece of paper.
I got to start with one quick question, because I thought there was a whole lot more behind Fabulous Arizona. So,
no, unfortunately, it's not that cool of a story.
now I'm hoping, because I love the name Say Less Media.
Yes.
What's the story behind that?
So that actually does have a story. So I have always been a less is more person. And I feel simple, to the point, clean. When it comes to design, I'm all about clean stuff, and stuff that's direct and to the point. So, especially when it comes to captions or storytelling or any of that stuff, people tend to get too lengthy in the weeds, or if it's design, there's too much going on. So I've always been a very much less is more, and so the say less thing was kind of where that came from. Also, the domain was available.
That always helps.
Yeah.
So going out in 2014 on my big timeline you missed at the very beginning, that's just when things were maybe starting to get better. But still wasn't good, and you were by yourself. How'd you convince yourself to be able to take a whole bunch of no's to get the few yeses?
Again, it was thinking about that long-term picture of where I wanted to be, and knowing that if I got a no, it was just that it was a no for right now. A lot of those people, it was a no at that time, and I look back now and I can see why, because I really wasn't experienced enough or wasn't big enough or whatever it was. But I've later on have worked with those people. So just knowing that maybe it's just a no for right now, that's okay. But it's kind of you really have to, so one thing I started doing was gratitude journaling. So every night I write down 3 things I'm grateful for that day. Some people do it in the morning. I like doing it at night because, especially when I first started my business, some days were so hard and I'd get to the end of the day and just feel so beaten down. And to be able to sit down and take that mental time to look at the positives of the day was just the only way I stayed afloat. So even if it was hey, I have running water today, I was able to pay my electricity bill and I have lights on, I have a roof over my head. Sometimes those were the only things I had to write down that day because it was that rough of a day. But being able to remind myself that of those positive things, or that one yes that I got over all the many no's, you kind of have to really stay focused on those yeses and not so much on the no's.
And today, how many employees do you have today working for you?
We are up to about, if you count the free contributors, okay. I do count them just because I do still manage them. We have about 20 people on our team. So in 2 years, I went from none to 20, and it's been a little overwhelming, to be quite honest. And managing people is a whole different ballgame. I've learned a lot, and it's a huge responsibility too. So it's definitely added a totally different level of stress. You're responsible for these people's paychecks and making sure that they are learning and growing as well. So it's a major responsibility to take on employees.
Okay. Before I keep going, any questions out? Yes, go ahead.
So I've helped multiple companies start from the bottom and kind of get their doors open and get going. And I think my biggest challenge was seeing all the inner workings of things, and then being the owner of the company as one of the advice or whatever that would cause some tension. And so that was when I decided to come back to school and I'm going to start my own business. But I think my biggest fear, and I kind of wanted
That's a wonderful question. I have been so incredibly blessed with an amazing team. We've had very few people that have come in that haven't worked out. And I think part of that is you attract the people, like if you're putting good energy out there, you're gonna attract that back. So I think that's part of it. Most of our staff has just organically come to us and said, hey, I like what you're doing, I wanna work with you. So finding people that are equally as passionate about what you're doing, I think is important. And I mean, skill is important, of course, but attitude, I think, is even more important. We have a couple of team members who came to us that didn't really have a strong skill set, but they were so eager and so excited and wanted to learn, and they have turned out to be our strongest team members. We've had to take a lot of extra time to teach them and train them, but because they are so, they have such a great attitude, it has, that has not been an issue at all that we had to take that extra time to train them, because now they're just very loyal, wonderful working employees.
Okay. Any other all right, let me jump in with some more. At the very beginning, you talked about people came to you and said they need your skill set, maybe not what you were selling them. And we talked about the magic pivot word in 2019. But as a business starting, and I've seen other small businesses do this, you sit in your office, you sit at home, you put out the perfect plan of this is what I want to do. You walk out on the street and they say, this is what I want to pay you to do. How do you, when those don't match, how do you make it work?
And that's, you have to be flexible with your plan, because again, you don't know until you start on this journey, and what you think is going to look like this ends up like this, and you kind of just have to roll with the punches. I mean, that's part of being an entrepreneur. Like, you have to be able to be adaptable and change your path to make it work, and especially with these economic issues that we've had over the last decade or so, you just really have to be able to adapt. And I feel like I was at an advantage that I grew up with so little, because I had to be very resourceful because of that. And so it kind of had, I was at an advantage of having that skill set of learning to be resourceful and adapt and work with nothing because of how I was brought up.
Now, I wasn't teaching here when you were here, but I just got to ask, just to put you on the spot. Do you remember any of your professors' names from GCC?
Oh gosh, I don't. And I know I took an accounting course here and I absolutely hated it, so I'm probably intentionally don't remember. Yeah, accounting and finance are my least favorite courses.
Okay, well, hopefully, no, they're not here today. So we'll edit that out of the video. Other questions I had for you. You now, you're in California, Nevada, Arizona, and you're in Wisconsin and Iowa. I don't think you could pick two more different regions in the world, or at least in the U.S. How do you run a business that's the same business in the Midwest and in Nevada and California?
Yeah, so that's actually been a very interesting process that we've had to go through to adapt our editorial, because we kind of have an overall editorial calendar that we apply to all the states. Of course, we're going to do holiday coverage and pumpkin patches and all that kind of stuff, and but for Iowa, we literally did a best farms piece. It's just you just have to kind of adapt to what each state is. So we've really had to it took us some time to kind of start figuring that out. And that's why it was so important for us to have those boots on the ground people in each state, because we don't know. Obviously I'm from Wisconsin, but I don't live there. I don't really know what's going on and what people do and think. And so having those people, so we actually have monthly meetings with all of our contributors, video calls, just to kind of make sure our team here in Arizona is in the know on everything going on in all the different states. So we kind of have a regroup meeting every month of them filling us in on anything we might need to know there in their state, so that way we're up on how things are. And even sometimes from city to city. So in Wisconsin, for example, Madison is so different from Milwaukee. Madison's a college town, it's very liberal. Milwaukee's kind of more cheese curds and beer, whereas in Madison you're going to have farm to table type organic and vegan options. So it's kind of have to make sure you know the markets.
And that's tough. With all that, and I love the opportunities the digital world provides to people who want to start their businesses, because it's a whole new aspect. And what advice do you give to somebody who wants to use the digital landscape to better their business or to grow their business? Other than saying hire, say less media, how do you talk to people? We have some real estate people, we have catering people, different people want to start businesses. How can they maximize on a smaller level what's in front of them?
Well, the beauty of digital is there's zero barrier to entry. I mean, it doesn't, and that's why I did an online magazine, because the overhead was so minimal, because I didn't have money or investors to start, to pay for those things. And that's the hard part. If you're doing a tangible product, you're going to obviously have to have cash flow to start that. Whereas with this, you don't need that. So I actually do speak on and teach classes on doing social media marketing for a small business. So if you are the business owner and you're also doing your own marketing, I have lots of tips and tricks for all that kind of stuff that I could maybe share with you if anybody needs it. But that's again, it's a free tool for you to use. So I think just learning as much as you can about that. I mean, obviously you also running your business is your full-time job, and doing marketing, quite frankly, can be a full-time job too. But utilizing those free platforms as much as possible, I think is so great to allow you to grow your business more. And there's lots of YouTube people you can watch to learn stuff, follow good accounts, find accounts on Instagram and stuff like that that give tips and that sort of thing that you can learn more from. I'm always learning. And a really good podcast that I love is called Social Media Marketing Talk Show. It comes out once a week, and they give you kind of the rundown of everything new that you need to know on all the different social platforms. So if you are running a business and need to know what's new, because honestly, they're changing. The fact that they come out with a podcast every week for it says how often social media platforms change. But you can you could do that on your drive while you're walking the dogs, whatever. Listen to that podcast and pick up some tips and stuff on how you can, better use your social media. I know you had a question. If I were to start my business today as opposed to back then? That's a great question. I think because we've continued to adapt as we go, I don't think what we're currently doing right now, I don't think would be much different, because we have so consistently changed what we're doing. Because we do audits monthly, and then also a big audit yearly of what we're doing and what we need to change and adapt to what's currently going on. But I feel like there's even more opportunities, because when I started Fabulous Arizona, Instagram didn't exist. So, obviously, I think I would have more opportunities to grow even faster if those things had been available to us when I started Fabulous Arizona. So I think there's even more opportunity now than there was then to grow something.
Might have had a MySpace, but...
Yes, good old MySpace. So you guys might not even know what that is.
Well, I'm gonna ask you to as we wrap up, to kind of look into your crystal ball. We're stepping out of the pandemic. We're going through this inflationary time. People want to get back face to face, but social media, the digital world isn't going anywhere. But we see businesses like Carvana declining. We see some of these online real estate things decline. Where's the digital business world going? Is there another pivot in your future?
Well, I think the in-person stuff still has to be there. So again, that face-to-face time, even now, I still have to go to events and meetings in person to build those relationships. The relationships are what grew my business to what it is now. So while the digital stuff is great, and it was nice to have that, and I think that's going to continue to be here, doing a lot of these digital events and doing meetings over Zoom. I think those things are still going to be there to some degree, but you still have to do that in-person stuff and that in-person work and networking and getting that face time with people. So I think that's still going to be a thing. But yeah, I mean, you're going to have to embrace these digital platforms though, regardless, and they're not going away. I know when TikTok first came out, I thought it was just going to be like a pandemic, little thing, and then it would die off, and that was not the case. So we kind of have to embrace them, and that's another thing is diversify. So I would not cling to just one platform because one, you don't know if they're going to die off, kind of like Facebook's kind of become not much of a thing. So you kind of have to, like Snapchat went away really. And then so you kind of have to like make sure you're on all the different platforms. And I also highly recommend making sure you have a website, you have an email marketing list. Those are things you own. So if Instagram goes out of business tomorrow and you like fully rely on Instagram for all of your leads, you're going to be kind of screwed if you don't have like these other things. So I definitely diversify in that sense. And that's also what kind of helped me get through the pandemic was having, the ability to diversify with having a large, doing lifestyle for instead of just food or just fashion or something, we had lifestyle. So we were able to also cover, medical practices and stuff like that. And same thing with the agency, being able to offer services to different industries was extremely helpful. No one else has any other questions? Yeah.
Speak loud, Kenan, come on.
For selling tangible items online, I know like Facebook, I've looked at that before. Facebook offers you to apply their ads to where you want those items to get like advertised. So like state, you can click like where you want the states. Do you have any advice where to find
Where to place your ads?
Where to find that information?
Yeah, so I definitely, are you saying find the information in terms of like which places you should pick to run it?
Yeah, basically which states to advertise. Like I know like Google, for example, I think they offer like find where the most states are searching for specific search.
Yes, you can do keyword like analysis with Google to see, keyword search trends and that kind of thing. I mean, you kind of have to know your market to some degree. So knowing, obviously we know in Arizona, we have a lot of people moving here from California and Canada. And so kind of understanding your market, because did I hear you earlier, your real estate, is that right?
Yeah, the real estate doesn't really apply to that. It was another business.
Okay, yeah, but as far as products, well, you kind of, if you have e-commerce, you've got your website, right? And so your website's going to tell you where your customers are from. So obviously you're going to learn from your just from your sales, where those people are from. And then if you've got followers on Instagram, obviously you can go look at where your followers from, and that'll kind of give you somewhat of an idea of like these people are interested. But you also might need to do some testing. So maybe run some ads in these different states and then see, which ones are converting. And so making sure you have your analytics set up, and that's kind of like what I said that I love so much about digital is that you can look at those analytics and know, and you'll have a very clear idea. But it might take some testing, so you'll have to be a little patient and maybe try a few different things and then see what is actually converting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And just definitely don't cut too soon because you got to allow them to take hold of the ads to reach. But
the social media marketing talk show.
well, thank you, Cynthia.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. And this is a little something for you.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
Comment.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Well, thanks for